specials and everything else at pizzabarnprinceton.com. And, if you're headed up north, just swing on by. Or you're headed back from north.
Or right off of 169. It's here. It's easy to find. Yeah.
Absolutely. I GPS'd it and just look next to the bank on Main Street.
Main Drag.
You'll
right
find
here.
it.
And right now, my big red car is parked outside. It's easy to find right now.
Absolutely. Tell me about awards and anthems.
I'm going to backtrack once here. I want to talk a little bit more about the Henning story.
Cool.
The team they beat in the state championship game, Northwoods, 67-42 was the score. I don't know before that game how many people were picking Northwoods, but they had been in the state championship game the last 2 years. And the downside is now they've been in the state championship game 3 years, and the Grizzlies have finished second at state each of those 3 years. And that kind of got lost in the shuffle of the great story at Henning. But there's a senior from Northwoods named Cade Goggle-Eye 2 years ago. There was some acclaim. He, playing in the state quarterfinals at Williams Arena, he made a shot from beyond half court to win the game, to get them to the semifinals. This year in the semifinals, in the last second, he hit a three-pointer from the corner to beat Ada Borup. So this kid has been to state 3 times. He's won 2 games, one from half court, one on a three-pointer with the kid right in his face. I don't know how he did it.
Wow.
But he's a shooter, and Northwoods has got a great basketball tradition. You kind of wish along the line here they'd have been able to win one of those, but they'll be back. There's so many good players up there, such a great coaching staff. And again, the Princeton boys team, first time at state in 87 years. The thing that stood out, I saw them play their first game at Williams Arena. What a fun team to watch. And Jody, pronounced the coach's last name, Brett Cloutier, young coach. He's in his 6th year. He's only 30 years old. He's been doing it for 6 years. And I had not met Brett till after that game, and I said, this is the most fun team I've ever seen. And it really was, because he just sends them out and they play. He's not one of these coaches. He's not micromanaging. He's not calling every offensive set. And he told me, we're not in the business of micromanaging high school kids on where they should be on the court every possession. It was freewheeling, so much fun, and great experience for those kids from Princeton and all the fans who were there. There's just nothing like that. It's just so much fun to see, and there's a million stories from these state tournaments. We're not going to touch all of them today, but in the coming weeks we'll go back to some of these. But yeah, you mentioned awards and anthems. Saturday at the boys state championship games, we had some awards that we do at halftime. Distinguished Service Awards. Speaking of officials, and thank a ref, longtime officials in many different activities. I'll just run down the list. Len Brown, Lauren Els, Chuck Everett, Mike Carnes, Georgianne Korn Fuhr, if I pronounce that right, Tim Litvin, Ron Pischel, Ann Suits. They range, from sports to activities that aren't athletics. And these Distinguished Service Awards, this is really the highest honor officials can get. And I know some of these people, wonderful people, every one of them, and they were recognized at halftime in one of the games. And then our good friend Tom Elliott from the St. Cloud Times, we have a Media Service Award the high school league gives. And he was the recipient of that at halftime. And Tom is a one-man show. He's the only employee of the St. Cloud Times sports department right now. They've had some people leave. They're in the process, I think, of hiring. Every time I see Tom, I say, how you doing on that hiring thing? And he just kind of shakes his head. He covers everything from state dance tournament to St. Cloud State hockey. I think when he left the halftime awards ceremony, he wasn't covering the tournament Saturday. They didn't have an area team in the tournament. But he had to have somebody cover for him for St. Cloud State's hockey game Saturday night because he couldn't be there.
Right.
But I think he was back at the hockey game before it was over.
Wow.
He got his award at halftime, waved to the crowd, got a nice hand, and I tweeted a nice photo of Tom with that award, and it's unbelievable. All of us who work in sports, we all know Tom. He's as good as they come. He's been doing it forever. And just the reaction to that was really nice. I know Tom doesn't want any publicity. He's
tough.
Not that kind of a guy.
He's going to get some.
Too bad, buddy. So, and I do want to mention some anthem performances we had. This is always great, especially for the games on TV. Grace Pidgeon. It's not Pigeon. It's Pingeon from Springfield High School. She was doing the anthem Saturday afternoon before the 1A and 2A boys basketball championship games. And what the routine is, before the TV coverage starts, they usually have the anthem singer. Here's the microphone. Take a dry run. Go stand out there where you will be standing in 35 minutes. Sing a few bars. We're doing a sound check. And the fans were already coming into the arena. So Grace got out there, stood up tall, started singing the national anthem, and usually sing a couple of bars. And okay, I'm good. That's good. She sang the whole dang thing. Everybody stood up, and then 35 minutes later, she did it again, and it was great. She was fantastic. So that was kind of rare to see that. We had some strings perform the anthem Saturday night before the 3A and 4A games. Michaela Thomas from Northfield High School played the anthem on the cello, and she did the same thing at the girls' tournament at Williams Arena. Just fantastic.
That's such a hard instrument.
And then we also had Ashley Goosey, G-U-S-E, Ashley, I'm not sure, Goosey from Wilmer. She did it on the violin during the girls' tournament. And then Faith Robinson of Minnetonka went old school and sang it before the Saturday night games at the girls' tournament. And those are really special, really talented kids doing great things. And the TV thing adds a lot to that, because as soon as these anthems are over, the Twitter comments start rolling into me. Hey, that was great. Who was that? Now, I usually get a picture. Some of them I tweeted video. If they weren't paying attention on TV, I'll let them know who it was. And just really great stuff.
Let's get to the Spring Sports Outlook. We want to thank our producer, Brandon Morton. Let you know if you'd like to join in the advertising on this show or anywhere on the network, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod for live show times, for posting of shows, for other information. And please download before you listen if you can. So what do you want to get to as far as the Spring Sports Outlook?
Yeah, it's kind of a holding pattern. This is not new.
Right.
When the winter tournaments end, I always tell people if there's a little bit of a weather delay, I'm so flat on my back after 9 winter tournaments in 7 weeks. I had a bout of vertigo that knocked me down for a week this year. We'll talk about that next week maybe. But, it's always interesting. And I'm not 20 years old like I think I am. And I'm worn out by the end. So spring sports are usually delayed. Practices are going on now. And there's some indoor track meets. It kind of varies by sport. But really it'll be a couple weeks. I mean, I saw a tweet from the Jackson High School softball team. They're practicing outdoors today. Their field is clear of snow and apparently clear of mud. But that's pretty rare. We're just going to be waiting here. And some teams are in better shape. Tracks can be cleared. There's no mud on a track. Tennis courts can be cleared. Those kind of teams usually get out there in good time. But baseball, softball fields, golf courses, they have to be dry. You just can't do that. And lacrosse teams, that's mostly a metro sport, and most of them have turf fields. So once you get that stuff cleared off the turf, you can go. But I would guess in a couple of weeks we'll be rolling pretty good with spring sports, and that timing is fine with me.
Let's do a couple Twitter questions here. Again, we are at the Pizza Barn in Princeton, Minnesota. Check them out at pizzabarnprinceton.com. Twitter question from Jerry Fury. Have they ever considered rotating the basketball tournaments? One year the girls play the week before the boys, and then vice versa the next year.
We've done that. A couple of years ago, we had a stretch of 2 or 3 years. That's how it was because of building availability and other things. And this year was a little different. We did have the girls first, then the boys. But the girls, the whole tournament was at Williams Arena and the pavilion right next door, which was great. You buy one ticket, you could see 12 games in one day for the quarterfinals. It was a great setting. Williams Arena is fantastic. We all know that, especially for the girls tournament.
Yeah.
I think, and part of that was Target Center wasn't available that week. Right. They had Disney on Ice, and they're going to make a lot of money with Disney on Ice. And the boys tournament, we have some quarterfinal games at Williams Arena, but all the semis and finals at Target Center. And the bigger arena is better for the boys just from a crowd control standpoint, especially the 3A, 4A games on Saturday night. The 3A game is a 5 o'clock game. The 4A is an 8 o'clock game with the girls. It's 6 and 8. And it just gives more time for the 3A fans. Once their game's over, they watch the awards, the celebration. They can move up if they want to stay. The 4A fans can move down. It's a big kind of mass of humanity, outflow, inflow. So, there's no reason really why the girls couldn't be the second tournament. And I've heard some from boys coaches. Some of them think it'd be a great idea to have the boys tournament a week earlier and have the girls then follow. Then they're not competing against the NCAA tournament. And that, they want to watch the tournament for one thing, and I think they wouldn't mind if their tournament was done before the March Madness starts on the college level. But I'm guessing the way this works, we'll probably have the same setup next year. Girls first, boys second. I don't know if the girls will be strictly at Williams and the Pavilion, but boy, there was no downside to that this year. It was a big hit, and I think Target Center, like I said, for the boys, is really, really it's an NBA arena. Who doesn't want to play in an NBA arena?
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
from Dan Brookins, when do the new section alignments
Yeah, this
come
is
out?
a big question. Every 2 years, the high school league realigns sections. Every 6th year, it's done from scratch. It's all new. This is not one of those years. This is basically one of the minor adjustment years. And most years when this happens, those new alignments would be known by now, but this year's moving a little slower. It starts when the high school league gets enrollment numbers from the State Department of Education. So I would guess within another week or two, those will probably be released, and I don't think there's just so few huge changes here, right? You know, schools can request to opt up. I know Minnehaha Academy, which just won another 2A boys basketball champion. They're moving up to 3A for the next 2 years at least. And their enrollment puts them at 2A, but they're good enough to play at 3A. Nobody would argue otherwise. So I would guess in the next week or two, those will be announced on the high school league website. And everybody just needs to stay calm. Patience is a virtue.
Our friend MJ, who came out to the Cheryl Reeve show last week, it was great to see her, asked, favorite unexpected pep band songs during the winter season?
I don't know that there were any that I like.
I noticed Nirvana and Led Zeppelin, which is interesting to hear people at this age still being interested in Led Zeppelin.
Yes, there was some of that. What was interesting to me was there was, I think it was one of the nights at Target Center. It might have been the 3A, 4A semifinals. One of those nights, we had a doubleheader with no pep bands because of mostly spring break.
Oh,
one
sad.
school's band was in Ecuador or something.
Wow.
They were on a trip, spring break trips, and that's okay. I like my pep bands, but it's kind of it's a little easier. In fact, I was on TV with 45 at halftime of one of those games, and generally you can't hear who's ever interviewing. You can't hear. I'm with Chris Long. We don't have earpieces. I'm reading lips, and he tells me beforehand, here's what I'm going to ask you.
Yep.
So I'm reading lips. We had no pep bands, and it was great because I could hear him, and we were talking about Perham High School and their new gym in their school, and we had Aaron Anderson, the activities director at Perham. So we had 3 of us up there on that set at Target Center. With the band playing right behind us, forget it. We're dead in the water. We can't hear each other, but there were no bands that night, so that was okay too. But yeah, we had some great performances by a lot of great bands. And, just some really great ones. The Austin came to state, boys and girls basketball. Fantastic band. I don't want to start naming them because there's so many. Right. They're all so good. The Ada Borup band is, I had a discussion with Richard Tuttle, my good friend who's the director of the Ada Borup band, and he was telling me he had been emailing with a band director in Minneota, and they're basically tied for the most state tournament appearances by a band director. Like at 23. And Richard would have taken the lead, but when the Ada Borup girls came to state, the band couldn't make it because of snow. So he would have a 1 tournament lead over the band director from Minneota. But yeah, it's always good stuff.
The most important question from MJ, a loyal listener to the podcast, she said, you ate an 11-year-old breakfast sandwich. Did that give you superpowers or make you bionic?
I did not eat it. This is okay. This was an
important distinction.
This was a tweet filled with lies. I did buy an Egg McMuffin at 8:30 Saturday morning. I stuck it in my bag, and it ended up they did give us lunch. As far as high school league employees, they gave us a box lunch. And I thought that might be it. This box lunch at 2 o'clock. I'm going to be here till 10:30. I might need that Egg McMuffin, but wouldn't you know it, about 7 o'clock they had dinner for us. So I did tweet a picture of, hey kids, if you're interested in the exciting world of sports journalism, you too can eat an Egg McMuffin you bought 11 hours ago, and it's been sitting in your bag all day. So I did not eat it. I'm not very smart, but I'm smarter than that.
Again, we're at the Pizza Barn in Princeton, Minnesota. We're about to have some fine dining here. Let's wrap up with the topic of tournament time.
Yeah.
Last weekend, I was in Des Moines doing the NCAA tournament. You were up here doing high school tournament, and the cool thing is the atmosphere is very similar.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And my wife and I, we used to live in Des Moines. I worked at the Des Moines Register.
Mm-hmm.
When we got married, that's where we lived. I went to Drake University in Des Moines.
Yep.
We both said at the same time, if not for the boys basketball tournament that I was busy with, we would have been down there watching the Gophers and hanging out in our home away from home. But you wrote a great piece about the atmosphere, how it's different than any other sporting event.
It really is.
Kids get 4 chances. And just the finality of that last game and the emotions of it all. You wrote a really good piece about that. And during the girls' state basketball tournament, I wrote a couple of things kind of behind the scenes of just the emotions these kids go through, the heartbreak. and just their world has come to an end because they didn't win a state championship.